Do animals have souls? The biblical truth about pets after death. Have you ever looked into your pet's eyes and felt something deeper than just companionship? Almost like a soul-to-soul connection? Maybe you've had a dog that seemed to understand your emotions better than most people, or a cat that, despite its aloof attitude, always knew when you needed comfort. Our pets aren't just animals, they become family. But then comes the hardest part of loving them, losing them. If you've ever had to say goodbye to a beloved pet, you know the pain is real. The empty bed where they used to sleep, the silence where there used to be purring, barking, or little paws tapping across the floor. You reach for their food bowl out of habit, only to remember they're gone. And in that moment, a question settles in your heart. Where are they now? Are they simply gone, or is there something more? As Christians, we believe that God created everything with purpose. The Bible tells us that not even a single sparrow falls without his knowledge, Matthew 10:29. So if God cares so much about even the smallest creatures, what does that mean for our pets? Do they have souls? Will we see them again in heaven? These are tough questions, and the truth is, the Bible doesn't give us a direct, crystal clear answer. But that doesn't mean we're left without hope. Throughout Scripture, we see glimpses of God's heart toward animals, to his grand plan for creation, and his promise to make all things new. And today, we're going to explore these questions together. By the end of this video, you might not just have answers. You might walk away with a renewed sense of hope, peace, and trust in God's goodness. So grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable, and let's dive deep into what happens to our pets when they die, and whether animals have souls, according to the Bible. Part 1. The unique relationship between humans and animals. From the very beginning, God created a world where humans and animals existed together in harmony. In Genesis 1:26-28, we see that when God made mankind, he gave them dominion over the animals. But this dominion wasn't about cruelty or exploitation. It was about stewardship, care, and responsibility. Adam's first task in the Garden of Eden wasn't building cities or inventing tools. It was naming the animals. Genesis 2:19-20. This act wasn't just about classification. It was about relationship. Throughout the Bible, we see animals playing significant roles in God's plan. Noah's Ark wasn't just about saving humans. It was about preserving every species of animal God had made. In the story of Balaam, God even used a donkey to speak. Numbers 22:28-30, showing that animals are more than just background figures in creation. They have a place in God's story, and their presence is intentional. Even in our everyday lives, the bond between humans and animals is undeniable. A loyal dog waits by the door for its owner to come home, excited as if they had been gone for years instead of just a few hours. A cat curls up on your lap, offering silent comfort on a difficult day. Horses, dolphins, birds. Every species has its unique way of connecting with us. Science may try to explain this bond as instinct, but anyone who has truly loved an animal knows it goes deeper than that. This connection isn't just emotional, it reflects God's love and design. Romans 1:20 tells us that God's invisible qualities, his power, his divine nature, are revealed in creation. When we see the unconditional love of a dog, the faithfulness of a horse, or the joy of a bird in flight, we catch glimpses of the goodness of God. Animals don't have sin natures like humans do. They simply exist as God made them, fulfilling their purpose without rebellion. In many ways, they reflect a purity that humans lost after the fall. So if God designed animals with such care, gave them an important role in the world, and even used them in his divine plan, does that mean they have souls? Do they have a spiritual nature, like we do? Or is their existence purely physical? These are the questions that lead us into the next part of our discussion. Part 2, do animals have souls? What does the Bible say? The idea of animals having souls is one that sparks a lot of debate. Some say that only humans have souls because we are made in the image of God, Genesis 1:27. Others argue that animals too have some kind of soul or spiritual essence because they have life, emotions, and even the ability to show love. But what does the Bible actually say? In Scripture, the word soul, is often translated from the Hebrew word nephesh or the Greek word psyche. Interestingly, these words don't just apply to humans, they are also used to describe animals. For example, in Genesis 1 verse 20 to 21, when God creates the creatures of the sea and sky, the Bible refers to them as nephesh chaya, meaning living beings. This is the same phrase used for humans in Genesis 7. This tells us that, in a biblical sense, animals do have life breath, the same kind of breath that God gave Adam when he formed him from the dust. But does this mean they have eternal souls like humans? That's where things become more complex. Ecclesiastes 3:19 to 21 brings up an interesting thought. Surely the fate of human beings is like that of the animals. The same fate awaits them both. As one dies, so dies the other. All have the same breath. Humans have no advantage over animals. Who knows if the human spirit rises upward and if the spirit of the animal goes down into the earth? Some scholars interpret this as proof that animals do have spirits, but their fate remains uncertain. Others argue that this verse is speaking from a human perspective, highlighting our lack of knowledge about the afterlife. What we do know is that animals are different from humans in one key way. They are not made in the image of God. Humans are given the ability to reason, create, and have a personal relationship with God. We are capable of sin and redemption, while animals simply exist within the natural order. This could mean that while animals have souls, in the sense of being living beings, they may not have eternal souls that require salvation like humans do. However, that doesn't necessarily mean they cease to exist after death. The Bible repeatedly speaks of a future where God restores all things. If creation itself is longing for redemption, and if God's ultimate plan includes a new heaven and a new earth, then isn't it possible that animals, including our beloved pets, could be a part of that? These questions lead us to an even bigger one. Where do animals go when they die? If they have a soul, does that mean they can enter heaven, or is there another fate for them? Let's explore that next. Part 3. Where do animals go when they die? This is the question that weighs on the hearts of many pet owners. When our beloved animals take their last breath, is that truly the end for them? Or do they go somewhere, perhaps even to heaven? While the Bible does not give us a direct answer, it does offer clues that can help us understand God's plan for his creation, including animals. Many Christians wonder if animals go to heaven, and the Bible does describe animals being present in eternity. Isaiah 11 verse 6 to 9 paints a beautiful picture of a future kingdom where wolves live peacefully with lambs, leopards lie down with goats, and a little child leads them all. This passage suggests that animals will exist in the restored creation. Similarly, Revelation 19:11 to 14 describes Jesus returning on a white horse, implying that at least some animals are present in the spiritual realm. If animals exist in the new heaven and new earth, could it be possible that God chooses to bring back the ones we loved? Romans 8:19 to 21 gives us another insight into this mystery. It tells us that all creation is groaning in anticipation of redemption. This means that not only humans, but the entire world, including animals, is waiting for the day when God makes everything new. If God intends to redeem and restore his creation, wouldn't that include the creatures he made with such care? Would he truly allow animals to simply disappear from existence, especially when they played such a vital role in our lives? One of the biggest theological debates surrounding this topic is whether animals need salvation. Humans, being created in God's image, are given the choice to accept or reject him. We are moral beings capable of sin, and thus we require redemption through Christ. Animals, on the other hand, do not sin in the same way humans do. They act according to their nature, without moral responsibility. Because of this, some believe that animals do not require salvation in the way that we do, which could mean that their fate is different from ours. At the same time, God's goodness gives us reason to hope. The Bible tells us that he is loving, merciful, and desires to give good gifts to his children. If the presence of a beloved pet in eternity would bring joy to his people, Is it really so far-fetched to believe that he might allow it? After all, if heaven is a place of perfect peace and joy, wouldn't it make sense for God to reunite us with the animals that brought us happiness in this life? While we may not have a definitive answer, we can trust in God's perfect plan. Whether or not we see our pets again, we can be assured that heaven will lack nothing. If God chooses to restore the animals we loved, it will be out of his great kindness. If he has a different plan, it will be even better than we can imagine. Our role is to trust in his wisdom and look forward to the day when all creation is made new. Part 4, God's love for animals, biblical evidence. One of the most comforting truths in Scripture is that God cares deeply for all of his creation, including animals. Throughout the Bible, we see evidence of his compassion toward even the smallest creatures. Matthew 10:29 tells us that not even a sparrow falls to the ground without God's knowledge. If he is mindful of a single bird, how much more does he care about the animals that have brought joy into our lives? The story of Jonah gives us another glimpse into God's love for animals. After Jonah preached to the people of Nineveh and they repented, he was frustrated that God showed them mercy, but God responded by reminding Jonah that his compassion extended not only to the people of Nineveh, but also to its many animals. Jonah 4:11. This passage suggests that God values his creatures more than we often realize. Job 12:7-10 further highlights this truth. Job says, "Ask the animals, and they will teach you. In his hand is the life of every creature and the breath of all mankind." This verse makes it clear that animals are part of God's grand design and that he is intimately involved in their existence. They are not forgotten by him, nor are they insignificant in his eyes. Even in the Old Testament laws, God demonstrated his care for animals. He commanded the Israelites to allow their animals to rest on the Sabbath, Exodus 23:12, showing that they too deserved rest and kindness. Proverbs 12:10 states, "The righteous care for the needs of their animals, but the kindest acts of the wicked are cruel." This verse not only encourages humans to treat animals with compassion, but also reflects God's own heart for his creation. Jesus himself acknowledged the role of animals in God's kingdom. When he entered Jerusalem before his crucifixion, he rode on a donkey, fulfilling prophecy and demonstrating that even humble creatures had a place in God's plan. The Bible often speaks of shepherds caring for their sheep, a metaphor that Jesus used to describe his own relationship with us. If animals were merely insignificant, would God use them so often as symbols of his love and care? The overwhelming evidence from Scripture shows that animals are not an afterthought to God. They are part of his creation, designed with purpose and intention. While we may not know exactly what happens to them after death, we do know that they are loved by their Creator. If God cares so deeply for them in this life, we can trust that whatever he has planned for them in eternity will be good. So, does this mean we will be reunited with our pets? While we cannot say with absolute certainty, we can hold on to the hope that God, in his infinite love and wisdom, will do what is best. Whether that means bringing our pets into eternity or giving us a joy that surpasses anything we can imagine, we can be sure that his plan is perfect, and in the end, we will not be disappointed. Part 5, will we see our pets again in heaven? For those of us who have lost a beloved pet, the question of whether we will see them again in heaven is deeply personal. We know that heaven is a place of unimaginable joy, a place where God wipes away every tear and restores all things. Revelation 21, verse 4-5. But does that restoration include animals? Will our faithful companions be waiting for us in eternity? While the Bible does not provide a direct answer, we do see glimpses of God's plan that give us reason to hope. Revelation 21 speaks of a new heaven and a new earth, a complete renewal of creation. This suggests that God is not merely taking believers to an entirely separate place, but is restoring his creation to its original perfect state. And if animals were a part of his perfect creation in Genesis, why wouldn't they be a part of the renewed world to come? Some argue that because animals do not have eternal souls in the same way humans do, they may not be included in heaven. But if heaven is a place of complete joy, could it be possible that God, in his goodness, allows us to reunite with the animals that brought us joy on earth? God is not limited by human reasoning. He is a God of abundance, a God who delights in blessing his children. If the presence of our pets would enhance our joy, then it seems entirely within his nature to restore them to us. Another consideration is the role of animals in God's future kingdom. Isaiah's prophecy in Isaiah 11 describes a world where animals live in peace, where the wolf and the lamb rest together, and where children play safely among them. If animals exist in God's restored creation, it would not be a stretch to imagine that he might choose to include those we have loved. Ultimately, the question of whether we will see our pets again in heaven is not one that can be answered with certainty. However, we can be certain of this: heaven will lack nothing. It will be a place of perfect fulfillment, perfect joy, and perfect love. Whatever God has planned will be far greater than anything we can imagine. And if that plan includes reuniting us with our beloved pets, then we can trust that he will make it happen. Conclusion: trusting in God's perfect plan. Losing a pet is never easy. They become more than just animals to us. They become family. They offer love without condition, loyalty without question, and companionship that fills the quiet spaces of our lives. Their absence leaves a hole in our hearts, one that time may soften but never fully erase. As Christians, we are called to place our hope not in what we can see, but in God's promises. While the Bible does not explicitly tell us what happens to animals after they die, it does tell us about God's goodness, his love, and his plans for restoration. That alone gives us reason to trust. We serve a God who cares for even the smallest sparrow, Matthew 10:29. A God who created all things for his glory and called them good. We serve a God who promises to make all things new, to wipe away every tear, and to bring his children into a place of eternal joy. Whether that includes our pets or not, we can be certain that we will lack nothing in his presence. So, what should we do in the meantime? We should cherish the time we have with our pets. We should love them as the gifts they are, caring for them as good stewards of God's creation. And when the time comes to say goodbye, we should do so with gratitude, knowing that God, in his perfect wisdom, holds the answer to the questions we cannot yet understand. One day, all of creation will be restored. Whether that means we will see our pets again, or whether God has something even greater in store, we can trust in this truth. Heaven will be far more wonderful than anything we could ever dream, and whatever God has planned will be enough.